about you guys.
She has a different voice and a different understanding.
Hello, and welcome to OffSite Dirt. On the OffSite Construction Series, we are featuring an off-grid build by GPod Americas. My name is Mark Willey, and I would like to introduce you to Audree Grubesic. Audree?
Thanks, Mark. This is exciting. We haven't done an off-grid, off-site solution, and now we have one here today with Andrew Seeley. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much, Audrey. How are you? Hey, Mark.
We are doing great. So we're going to jump right into it. As we can see, we have this amazing design building behind us, and Andrew is the expert, not only with GPod, but with his own off-grid property. How will future buildings be different from today's buildings, Andrew?
Well, that's the question we're starting off with there. Great one, Audrey. I think the whole point of our exercise today, we have some offsite technology that's growing, I think, and its impact to the industry. And what we're trying to do is take what we have today and imagine the future of building construction. And so the project behind you there, and what we'll start off talking about is the project we have called Villa. And that's one of the scales from our building development platform called Nexus. And it's our exercise in taking what's common today, materials, and the level of performance that we can achieve to make the buildings comfortable and durable, and imagine what it would be like to be doing projects like this in the future. So that's what this exercise is about. And of course, we don't know what the buildings of the future will really be like, but the exercise is valuable and valid, and we need to be thinking about it because we know already from the past 50 years that production in construction has not improved. We haven't gained any more work for the amount of time and money that we spent. So we need to think about ways to address the opportunities there. Obviously, we all believe that offsite doing the work in a factory is better in a lot of ways than doing it on site, but we can't always solve everything in one move. So we're interested in trying to use all of the abilities that we can deploy today and the materials that we can employ today to solve those problems for the future and prepare us for what we really need to be doing more of in the future, which is probably planning and trying to adapt to complicated conditions and find all the efficiencies that we need to turn building construction into a business that has a lot of productivity gains.
So you're spot on with all of this, and we can continue to dive deeper because each region, each climate zone, each project site is so unique, as are the budgets and the folks that put them together. So starting at this broad landscape in front of us, what are some of the things, Andrew, that we really should be doing differently than we do today?
Well, Mark, as usual, it depends on what we're trying to do. So the place to start, we think, is with a digital plan to try to understand the opportunities in a site and for the end user, whether that's a guest at a resort or a worker in an office or somebody that lives in a home. So we want to understand what we can do with what we have today. So normally the starting point for us is to try to understand the physical wheres and the physical hows and try to come up with some of the whys. And then we go from there. We have the ability to do a lot of the planning digitally. And we showcase a little bit of that on this project that you've got behind you. But really, the future is much more important, I think, than today for the examples that we want to look at. But really, the opportunity is to do the planning digitally, and then we can execute hopefully better when we're actually doing the work, whether that does include some work on site or in a factory. And I think it gives us a good opportunity to do modeling, whether that's the conditions like the sunshine and the heat moving through the parts of the building. But it could also just be, how do we want to assemble things, and how do we understand the local materials in a given region, in a marketplace, and how do we understand how to use those in the best possible way?
So agree with you. I think technology is key there. I think that just that statement of technology and being able to model, we are seeing those effectively through Be Public or Be Prefab Public. We're looking through Holstrom Systems. We're looking at it GPod America. I mean, there's so many of these conversations that we've had on OffSite Dirt with so many different companies. So obviously technology is always going to be the forefront of the design and these conversations and how they move forward. Obviously, the other big piece of this, Andrew, is materials. What do you think is going to happen in the future, or how are we going to source materials, or what kind of materials are we going to be using?
I wish I knew. I think the point of that question is really to think about where we're headed today. So we have today a category called engineered wood, which is a great use of materials that may be smaller in size individually, but can be combined into larger dimensions. And that's a great way to leverage the materials we have for a construction advantage. That's maybe where we start. And then we can imagine in the distant future, what new things could we develop? Maybe not synthetic, maybe natural, but there are a lot of things in the composite category, and additive manufacturing is playing with some of those concepts right now, where we can print using concrete or other materials a structure. I think for me, the big category is probably some type of composites, where we understand how to take natural materials that are locally sourced, and we can turn them into a stable material that's healthy and easy to use, it's durable, and it doesn't cause us problems like maybe we'd find in the petroleum industry or some of the other materials that are very energy intensive, and in the future we could assume would come with some kind of clear penalty. So I guess the composites is probably the category where we would see the most abstract potential, but then, you know, we may continue for the next little couple of decades on this trend for maximizing the materials that we have that we're familiar with, like wood and engineered wood and things like that. So it's a great question. I wish I knew. We're really interested in this, and hopefully the next few years we get an understanding of where that potential really is, and we can start planning on using some of it.
Well said. The evolution is upon us, and what's coming in from Europe needs to be fast tracked in the Americas. So over time, I've had many conversations with you, and a couple of things that I'd like our audience to think about when they meet you and when they learn about GPod Americas is your introduction to new principles, and one of which is light impact to the surroundings in which the structures go on. So your current set of modules has 12 footings. It's raised up above the ground so that when Mother Earth, Mother Nature is throwing down all the water and the creatures of the habitat want to hustle and bustle about, they could do so without the massive change to the turf and the tierra in front of us. And then another brilliant thing you've done was to bring the solar and the battery storage for the tools to the site prior to the assembly of your modules. So whether the modules are being put together on site, whether they're panelized, whether they're prefab, whether they're modular, or whether they're volumetric, all those incredible systems that we know about, the energy used to assemble these and put them together is all coming from the sunshine, right? And from welders to our handheld battery powered tools. Andrew, this is exemplary. It is the standard we will hear more of. And so again, when you meet Andrew, when you meet the folks at GPod Americas, think about that and think about how these typologies can be a part of your projects.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, we agree. Let's build with renewables, not just tack them on after the build is done. It's a smart way to do things, and it saves us a lot of work, just like we would apply the concept of doing the work in a factory so that we don't have this unusual result every time in the field. So it definitely fits in with what we're doing, and thanks for calling that out, Mark.
So, Andrew, you're constantly in this evolution of thinking forward, and you're building this beautiful designed home, and you're thinking about the environment. How have you been able to bring all these pieces together and be effective in your build that you're doing now?
Well, thank you, Audrey. I guess I think we're still really far from the result, but we're making some steps. And I think the tendency of people to change, I think it's based on opportunity and need. And for some of us that aren't, the way I see the industry is we've got incumbents that are pressed to continue what they're doing, and then folks that can afford to do the R&D to figure out what's next. And I think we all occupy one or both of those camps at certain times. It's important, I think, when we have whoever's on the shore of the river that we've got to cross is probably well positioned to figure out what the other side is going to look like. So that part of it is real to us. We definitely see there's an opportunity in the industry to do things in a way that takes into account the changes we need to make. And so we're trying to carry part of that forward. And if we can't build a super highway, at least we can make some marks so that people can follow along and join us on the path. It's an interesting thing to imagine change in an industry where we really haven't seen technology make any improvements. So that's a special case. There are a lot of reasons why construction hasn't increased in productivity in all these years. So it's not a simple thing, but we know that other industries have changed through new ways of thinking and new ways of solving problems. And typically the people that solve those problems are either forced to, or they see an opportunity. So we think we're kind of sharing both of those characteristics, because we're not happy with what we're doing today. We don't think that it's bad to do what we're doing today, but we don't think it can continue and be as useful to the folks in the future as we want them to be. So we'd like to change that, and we think we're in a position to think differently. We're adherents to the offsite efficiencies that come from doing the work in a factory. We love the application of technology when it comes to planning and measuring a result. And so for us, it's natural to see the opportunity for the change, and we want to be part of that.
Awesome. Andrew, thank you for taking on the responsibility of being ahead of the curve with a sexy radius. It's incredible. It's also a responsibility of leading the charge of building offsite and building in an off-grid renewable manner. I know you don't take that lightly. So for Andrew Seeley of GPod Americas, for Audrey and myself, Mark Willey, we are thrilled that you've checked out this edition of the Offsite Construction Series on OffSite Dirt. Check back often, because Andrew will be back with more. We can't wait to show you what he's up to next.
Thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate it.